each day I resumed my work with my dad, my sweet battles with my mom. You know, I mean, we've resolved so many things, but you know, gosh, it was always really hard. And I bless her, bless her, bless her. And she's still around. Both my parents are still around. But you know, we mothers and daughters, we do have our battles, but they are there to really help us and help us understand when we can get through all that. That's another story again. Yet, all right, so the progression of the modalities and the healing and the information that was coming through me every day and every night increased to the point where, you know, I was given complete contradictions of what I'd learned in learning other modalities. You know, this is the way I'm supposed to read the body, which is completely opposite to somebody else. And I was like, wait a minute, this is a challenge. So it was probably, and it went on for a few weeks, and probably a month later, my joy, the joy level of being where I was getting lower and lower and lower. I didn't feel at home. I didn't feel comfortable. I was battling myself most of all. And one night, this intuitiveness, this message came through again. It's like, you're done. It's time to return. Well, you know, it's like, yeah, right. How do I tell my parents that, you know, once again I'm not going to anchor and ground and do what I'm told to do and be the good daughter and be responsible, and all right, you know, I'm going to run off again. No, I had to. It was the only thing that I could do, and I immediately, when I knew that was the message, everything changed. I physically changed. My parents even saw the energy in my body completely change, that it was right. And so 2 weeks later, I got on a plane to come back to Denver, because that's where I flew out of. I had a car that I tried to sell, nearly sold twice. And I returned to the US with 2 suitcases, a laptop computer. The car that I picked up when I arrived in Denver, I am still driving. It is now 14 years old. She is my most faithful companion. And the 12 boxes that I sent back to Australia, they are still in Australia. That was also one of these gifted, you know, guidance exercises to give up what you think you need, keep what you believe that you really need, that you can never get rid of, and then do the exercise, pay the thousands of dollars to get it back there and do whatever, and then come back with even less and realize that you didn't really need that at all in the first place. This is how guidance works. And it's only in hindsight that you can understand all of these things. You can never see it when you're in the mix of the whole journey. So I did. I arrived back in Denver and I picked up my car, and I stayed with a friend for a couple of weeks until she asked me to leave because she was having visitors, and I was like, now where do I go? So I went to a hotel. Oh gosh. And I never told my children that, because they would have absolutely cringed about mother staying in a hotel, having no idea where she's going and what she's doing. So it was about 2 weeks, and logic kicks in. It's like, okay, I've got to find a job. What am I going to do? And I knew I had the new healing ideas, but that's not going to sustain me because I don't know anybody else in Denver. You know, I've lost my connections, and it's not the area that I was really comfortable in. So I've got to go back to the mundane, looking for a job, and I went into employment agencies, which I would always walk out of an employment agency feeling this big because I was perceived as not capable of doing anything at all. And this is very relevant to the story. So it was April. It was snowing. It was miserable in April in Denver. And I had been given the guidance to go to these employment agencies. I had been to 3, and I had walked out of 3 and feeling so miserable because basically they sort of said, no, your skills are not what we're looking for. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm really capable. I've been in administration. I've been this. I've been this. I've been this. I've been this. What is it with these people? You don't type fast enough. You don't do enough shorthand. I mean, come on. So anyway, I had the last one on the list. I couldn't find it at first, and then I eventually, all of a sudden, it's right there, and I pull in the driveway and go, okay, fine. I took a few deep breaths, and I went up the stairs with my resume in hand, and I'm greeted with a nice warm welcome and told to fill out another application form, which I gave them my resume, and I'm filling out theirs, and they offered me a cup of coffee, and it's like, okay. And a little while later, the lady who took my resume, she comes out and she goes, I hadn't finished yet. She doesn't matter, come here. Okay, this does not look good. So I go and sit in her office, and I didn't realize at the time that she was the owner of this agency. And we sit down, and she's like, you have a really interesting resume. And I laughed because I decided on the resume I was going to put every qualification I had. Not just the business, but the business and, and my hobbies and my past and all of the different things that I've done, the businesses I've owned, because one doesn't show who you are. So I was like, I'm going for broke, And I laughed, and I said, nobody's ever said that to me before. And so we're going down, and she's, I see you've done this, and you've done this, and you've done this, and and then she gets down to the bottom, and she says, I'm really intrigued by what you have as your, your interests and your hobbies. And you say, this energy work, can you explain it? And I went, well, yeah, this is what I do, and this is what I've learned, and I feel that that's part of what my work is, incorporating it into this, that, and the other. And I've learned the television, and somehow I think at some point it's going to be put in there, but I don't know how. And I was going blah blah blah, just like now. And she stops and she looks straight at me and she says, I can get you a temporary job if you like, but I don't think that's what you're supposed to do. Well, that's fine for her to say because she has a paycheck or she has money coming in. I'm sitting there going, how am I going to pay for my next week in the hotel? Where am I going to have money? And I just looked at her and I said, what do you mean? And she said, I think this is what you're supposed to be doing. And I just looked at her and she said, I would like a session with you. Mm. And I was dumbfounded. And I said, excuse me? And she said, do you have time? Well, that's what I did have. And I said, yes. She said, I'd like one now. I said, oh, okay. Let me go and get my little bag out of the car. And so I'm in shock. And so I go and get my bag and I sit her in her office chair. And I pull out my book, which the book I was shown to use was Sacred Mirrors by Alex Gray. Amazing, amazing book for anybody who's interested in energy. I had a CD that was very powerful, and I had headphones, a Walkman and headphones. I had my aroma, my little bottles of essential oils that I used. And I pulled all out and I said, this is what I do. And I explained it and did my thing, and I walked behind her, put my hands on her shoulders, and whoop, my friend comes to visit, and she's gone off into somewhere else. And 20 minutes later, bring her back. She's like, wow. And we talk, and I'm just going, oh. And she said, I'd like to give you as a gift to my 2 employees. Do you have time? Wow, are you serious? And she said, yes. I went, really? Yes. So she calls her employees in and she says, I'd like to give you as a gift, give a gift to you, and I'd like you to have a session with Ophelia. And one was 3/4 open, the other one was 3/4 closed. And so, to say the least, one was good and one was, not so good. Didn't matter. I did what I did, and at the end of, it's like another 45 minutes, hour went by, and she was waiting in her office, and I walked in, and so she said, wonderful, and she hands me a check for the 3 sessions that I did, and she says, and here is the name and phone number of 2 friends of mine. One is a CEO of a printing company, and the other one is a life coach for many of the CEOs in Denver. I would like to give you as a gift to these 2 women. And here is the check for it. And I'm just going, thank you. Totally in shock. And so I walked out of there in great gratitude, great humility, going, what are you trying to show me? And that was a Friday, so then, I passed the weekend going, what am I going to do here? And Monday, I call these 2 ladies, and I introduce myself, and I say, I'm a gift from Judy. What are you talking about? What do you do? What do you mean? And I said, well, I guess you could sort of call, I do stress release sessions. Oh, really? Oh, I need that. And I said, okay, how long does it take? And I said, 20 minutes, half hour, an hour, whatever. Oh, where do I come? And I said, you don't. I come to you. Oh, really? Where? And I said, well, I can come to your office. Really? Yeah. So we set up a time for both of them. And at the appropriate time, I arrive to see these ladies, and went into the first one. The first one was the printer. And I walked into her office, and she was very cordial and everything. It was like, well, what are we going to do? And I went, well, all you have to do is sit there, and I have, I had a little stool, or we had one of their chairs, and it just depended on which one seemed to be most appropriate that I would use. And they sat in their office, and I explained what I would do, and I would pull out my music and my book and the aromatherapy and go through this, per se, woo-woo stress release session. And my friend would come in and give me the information and whatever else, do the healing that needed to be done, and we'd talk at the end of it. And they came out with information, with things that were touched that some of them had never even knew that existed. But it was being given in such a way that was so safe that they were allowing themselves to experience it. And this was one of the biggest pieces of guidance I probably ever had. And I realized why I was also being given as a gift. Because when you are given as a gift, it is received in a completely different way than something that is, per se, paid for with an expectation. It's a complete rewiring of the mind. So I understood, it took me a while, but in hindsight, I understood why I was being given as a gift to people in corporate Denver. And I was given as a gift around corporate Denver for over 6 months. Every single person I worked with went, I know somebody else I'd like to give a gift to. And it was just this reciprocal movement. The coach, the the CEOs. Went to her home, I worked with her. I then was gifted to work with her husband, her stepson, and some of her clients, which was an incredible affirmation of what I was doing. I had amazing experiences in insurance companies, in machine shops, you name it. I saw it all. I'd sometimes go to a house, I'd sometimes go to a park if that's what they would want. Most of the time it was in their offices. What happened was when it was finished and we walked out, employees or anybody who was in the area would look at their boss or whoever the person was that I worked with, and they would physically see how they had changed. They would see a lightness, they would see an aura around them, they would see they'd lost 10 years on themselves, they would see something and sort of go, what did you just do? I mean, and some of them were so blunt, like, what did you just do? You've completely changed. Really? I'm different? Oh, yeah! Mm-hmm. To the point, I even found out that their personalities changed, that their attitudes changed, that there was something that was literally being dissolved through them, the strings and the threads and the morphing of something, the energy of dams within them was dissolving in such a way that that which was released just never came back, it didn't exist any longer. And that was the essence of my work. Still is, but that was what the beginning was.